Okay, so I've just finished my second half here. I have the white one done. I've already brought in all of my thread. I haven't cut it off the hook yet because this is what I do to measure it out. I take, I can actually leave this open just a little bit so it's not in my way, so I'm going to set that down. I take the black thread, and what I'll do is measure by kind of lining the black thread around once, go around twice, okay, and just for good measure I'll go about halfway around again, so I'll get to the other side, measure it there, and that's where I'll cut it. And this should give me enough black thread to sew the two halves and the button together. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead and pull from the last slip stitch all the way through. Oh, I got a knot in here. I'm going to go ahead and thread my yarn needle. Okay, there we go, got it. And then grabbing the top part where that annoying looking red stitch is, we're going to use the yarn needle and put it all the way through the first available single crochet. Pull it all the way, that little red bit here, this is going to get tucked in, but just enough so that it's nice and tightly pulled. And then, at least to start with, I like to flatten the two pieces together like this. That way it's a bit hard to make out on the web camera, but when I'm looking at it myself I can kind of see that here's my next stitch here, there's my next stitch there, and we're just going to kind of sew the two pieces together that way, with the needle going through one stitch from the white, one stitch from the red. And we don't want to go all the way around, but we want to get a majority of it closed. That way you have a nice enough gap to stuff the inside. And again, I apologize for the inability to see since it's done in black. You're not going to be able to make it out very well on the web camera. I wonder if I can pull it close. I think it's still even a bit hard to see, but through both stitches all the way, flatten the two sides, both stitches and all the way, just a simple seam like this. Okay, 2 and 2. Every now and then kind of check to see how much you've closed. So right now I have about that much closed. Still quite a big gap though, so we're gonna close it up a bit more before we actually start stuffing it. Okay, check my seam. It's looking good. I'm actually gonna soak just a couple more before I start to stuff. So 1, 2, okay, that ought to be good enough. So at this point, we've got a nice little hole here. The rest of it's all nice and sewn together. Okay, I've got my fill down at the bottom, out of shot, but this is what's going to go on the inside. It looks big, but we're going to kind of compact it down. So you just kind of start shoving this polyfill into it. And I use polyfill. If you want, you can do the knee-high and little bead trick so that you can make it like a hacky sack. If you've got scraps of fabric or felt that you want to fill it with instead, you can do that. But at this point, you kind of like when you're cooking and you season to taste. you're going to stuff it to however full you want it to be. So you can have a nice little floppy Pokeball. You can have one that's pretty firm. It all depends on how much you fill. So I've got pretty good amount in here. I'm gonna fill just a little bit more. Kind of stuff along the top, bottom. Use my thumbs to get that really good in there. Now I'm gonna move my fill. Okay, and then from here, now that we've got it nice and full to where we want it, pick up the needle, and you're going to keep going. Now this part is going to be a little bit harder because you want to try not to poke at any of the filling on the inside, because then that'll kind of pull it through the seams a little. But we're going to keep stitching it closed. Okay, see how I've already started pulling out a little bit of filling in that one. So try not to get it on the needle as you sew it closed. Okay. Keep going, I'm almost done. Oh, I only got one loop that time. At least while the hole is still big enough for you to, I stick my finger in there a little bit. Oh, I started pulling some again. Stick my finger to kind of get the stuffing out of the way. It's less likely to catch on my needle. So I'm going to keep almost done. Oh, I started pulling some again. And don't worry about this extra fluff here. It'll come, you know, just leave it alone. It won't bother anybody. Okay, let's grab on the home stretch. One. Okay, grab that one. So closed, and for good measure, grab these last two here, sew them together. Okay, and we've got it nice and tightly closed. Now, the sort of tricky part is going to be sewing this button on top. So you're going to want to place it somewhere that looks right, something like that. Okay, and we've already got it connected, so you're going to want to find one of these back seams behind it, pull it through. Remember, you want to keep it, kind of hold it down with your thumb where you want it. And then you're going to go underneath, try to pick a seam that's close on the inside. That way you're less likely to see the thread as you stitch it. So like right here, this one's probably pretty good. Bring the needle out, and now we're going to tuck it into one of the seams in the back, like so. Pull it through, pick another. So you lay it flat, see where it's going to be, so we can probably pick this guy right there, through, and find a seam on the back of the button. Let's try to get a bit more than that. There we go. Nope, don't want to pull out the stuffing. And you're going to do that all the way around the button until you get back. Now, give it a nice tug. Now we've got our button secure. So, to hide the black thread, what I like to do, go to the side that's closest to you, stick the needle through, and pull it all the way until it starts poking out the other side. So we're going to essentially hide this behind the button. So pull it all the way through. Then you're going to take a pair of scissors, snip it as close to the button as possible, being real careful. You don't want to snip something important. Like I said, we got this little guy sticking out, but it'll eventually go in. And you're done. You made yourself a plush Pokeball. So I already have a couple that I've done. Like I said, you can send me a message if you have any questions, and I'll see if I can try to answer them, but I hope you give it a try and have fun.